Swapna Nair, American Express GBT, I can shorten it.
Yep.
General Manager Benelux. I think you're relatively new for a lot of the audience. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I'll do that. I'm Swapna Nair, General Manager of American Express Global Business Travel. And for those of you who don't know GBT, we are a travel management company, one of the largest global management travel companies today. And before I took on this role, I used to be the head of sales for Benelux for GBT. And prior to that, my experience is in the technology sector. So I used to work with tech companies like Capgemini and Infosys in commercial roles, growing their EMEA portfolio.
Okay, very impressive resume. You're also relatively young for the position you are. How did you manage to climb the ladder so fast?
So for that, I do personally believe that one of the most important things is to have the right leaders and mentors. And I have to say, I've been very, very fortunate that I've had fantastic mentors who've guided me, taught me the tricks of the tricks, but also given me a lot of opportunities to explore and, take on new challenges. And I think the other thing is one of the first things that my mentor ever told me, and this was every time you feel you're too comfortable in your job, it's time to start doing something else because it means that, it's too easy. You have to be very uncomfortable. You should not know everything in the role that you're supposed to do. So that is something I personally try to see as well. So if something becomes too easy,
you stop growing.
It's time. Exactly. It's time to move on.
That's a good advice for anyone who wants to take it. So you did start your new role in a very challenging time. What were the key learnings for you and Amex for the past 1.5 years?
Yeah, so I did start my role 1st of Jan this year, so definitely not the right time. We were almost 90% down in revenues in business travel. Most of the region was in lockdown. All our teams were going through a mental fatigue, so it was a very tough time. And I think as a company, there were 3 things that we really needed to do over the last 1.5 years. So the first thing was we needed to maintain whatever business as usual that remained. There was still 10% of traffic. We still had clients who required some of the services. And we also had to look after our teams. So that was the first imperative that we had to do. But the 2 other things that we had to do, the second was we had to quickly manage our cost base. Because when we are down 90% in revenues, we cannot continue to operate as usual. So we had to be much leaner. We had to make use of the government programs that existed across the globe, and we also had to let a few people go. So we really needed to make ourselves lean, reduction of some of the real estate. So there were a few things that needed to be done. And thirdly, we also needed to transform our business, because one thing that we realized very early on is when we come out of this pandemic, we're still very confident that business travel will return, and it'll return very strongly. But it will return in a different format. So what got us here will not take us forward. We needed to be agile, we needed to think differently, and there were a few initiatives that were always on GBT's roadmap, but they just needed to be accelerated. So there were considerable investments that went into that as well. And so that's been the last 18 months.
Busy.
Very busy. Busy. Sounds surprising, but it was very busy.
I can imagine. So the state of the business today, can you elaborate?
Yeah, so what we are seeing is we are seeing travel start to come back with vaccination rates increasing across most of the countries. We do see that in countries where there's a significant domestic travel, it's picking up much quicker. So France, Spain, Germany, US, we're almost back to about 50% of what we were, so things are picking up. Unfortunately, Benelux does not have a lot of domestic travel. We are highly dependent on international travel. So what that means is the pickup for this region is much slower. We're still seeing companies take a very cautious approach. So what that means is they've still enabled travel only for their C-suite or leadership teams, or it is only business critical travel. So they've not opened it out to their entire team. So it's still very slow, but hopefully they start gaining confidence and this starts improving over the course of the next few months.
One of the key points on everyone's agenda right now is sustainability. We heard Roberto talk about it. Everybody will have it somewhere on his agenda, maybe not on the first page, but somewhere. It's climbing the ladder. So how does American Express put sustainability on their agenda?
So for us, sustainability is very, very important. And what we have noticed in the last 15 months, it's also become a high priority for all our clients. So before the pandemic, it was one of the topics that was on their radar, but in the last 18 months, it's really become center of their corporate agenda. And there are a few things that we're doing on that. So firstly, as a travel management company, it's important that we walk the talk. So in 2019, we were the first TMC to completely offset our carbon emissions for all our employee business travel. And we do that by partnering with Carbon Fund in a number of green initiatives. This is also something that we do for our clients. So they can offset their carbon emissions by investing in carbon funds, which can be enabled through us. Offsetting, of course, is not the solution because there's still carbon emissions, so it's almost a way of just managing your guilt. So the idea is we need to have lesser emissions. And for that, we've also launched a partnership now with Shell Aviation to promote the use of sustainable aviation fuel and how we can enable that. Because what we've understood is it's important to decouple travel from carbon emissions. So it's not necessary that the growth of travel has to directly correlate to the growth of carbon emissions. Carbon emissions are the problem. So if we find a way to delink it, and of course for that SAF is a very, very important product. So if you can delink it, then business travel can continue to grow without really affecting the growth of emission. And that's the right way, and that's the sustainable way. So that is something that we're investing in and trying to find. It's still some way off, because the usage of SAF today is considerably limited. It's very, very expensive. So at the end, it goes on to the clients. They still need to pay for it. But that is the way forward.
Moving from sustainability to technology. What trends were accelerated maybe because of the pandemic? So tech, of course, was very strongly accelerated. And especially if you see what happened when countries went into lockdown from day 1 to 2, automatically the usage of Zoom, also for our personal use, right? Everyone started getting a lot more comfortable with technology. I mean, the usage of e-commerce, home shopping, restaurant takeouts, so that has become very, very normal. And this is something that we think we would see also when business travel comes back. So what we have done is we've invested heavily in tech. We've enabled Apple Business Chat. There is a lot of AI automation that is going into it as well. And I also heard Roberto mention it, that it is going to accelerate. Though we don't think we would see that in the next 6 months, because what we are seeing right now when travel comes back is people are using less tech and they're using more of our offline services just because they want to feel the comfort of talking to a person on the other end. So for them, tech is not comfortable yet. But that is a short-term fix that we see. And once people start traveling a couple of times, once they get comfortable, tech will be back and it'll be back stronger. So I can imagine that your services and your support are right now much more needed than before COVID.
Yes, absolutely. And I have to be honest, it is a little tough at the moment, because what we are seeing is travel has come back very quickly. But we are also seeing that because people are using less online, they're more reliant on our offline teams, and we're also seeing that they're calling us a lot more for queries and a lot of questions. So it is putting tremendous pressure on our teams as well. So it's that is the tough bit of travel returning as well. It's restarting in a very difficult way. So it will take a bit to stabilize.
Another development not so long ago, the takeover of Agencia. What is the vision behind the takeover?
So Agencia is a phenomenal brand in the market, and they have a very strong technology stack. Their vision and their growth trajectory is very much in line with where GBT wants to be as well. We have a very strong focus on tech, and there are synergies to be there. If you, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we also acquired a company called Ovation towards end of last year. And Ovation is a high-touch VIP service. So now jointly with Ovation, GBT, and Agencia, the intent is we have a value proposition that can service every segment of the market. So not every brand tailors to exactly the same segment. And the idea is we want to have a value proposition that right from SME to the global Fortune 100 companies, we have a value proposition for everyone. And the partnership with Agencia also includes an agreement with Expedia, where Expedia becomes a 14% stakeholder in the GBT group. What that means is we will have access to Expedia content. So jointly with Booking.com, Expedia, and all the content, it also makes us a very strong content supplier in the marketplace. So that's also the other strategy behind this acquisition.
Sounds very good. What is your outlook, your vision for 2022 in regard to business travel?
So it's still very tough to provide any firm predictions because things are still changing day by day, and now with the increasing cases, there's still a lot of uncertainty still. But we've done a lot of client surveys, and the general feedback we have is 98% of our clients will restart travel in some form or the other this year. And about 4 in 5 decision makers that we've surveyed, they do want face-to-face meetings. And the other shift that we see is there's more hybrid working. So we're going to go to more distributed workspaces and remote working. But that will also lead to more meetings and more travel because you need to bring those teams together. And a lot of companies have given up their real estate. So they don't have offices to meet up anymore, which means that you need a meeting location, and every meeting becomes, every catch-up becomes a meeting in itself. Which is also good for our business. So we do think that this will increase. And if you look at the IATA and GBTA predictions, they say that by 2024, we would be back to 2019 volumes. So 3 years from now. So that seems to be in alignment with what our clients are saying as well.
Okay, so that's only 3 years.
It's only 3 years, and we could use the 3 years.
I can imagine, Is there a message you would like to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, so my message would be that, we truly believe that travel is a force for good and travel will bounce back. So we're very confident in that. There is enough pent-up demand in the market. When we talk to our clients, they really need travel to come back. And times like this also show the importance of having travel managed companies, because it's in times of crisis that you cannot manage it yourself. You need companies to handle your duty of care, handle your reporting, So I do think partnerships and companies like ours are going to become very important. They're going to stay relevant, maybe even more relevant than they were before. And it will come down to being able to offer a traveler experience where the traveler has, the right choices. So choices from a content perspective and also choices from a flexibility perspective, including the tools that they have, and also giving them a very seamless experience. So as long as we manage to do that, travel would be back.
Travel will be back. I think that's a great way to end our interview. Swapna, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
Swapna
DJ.
Nair.